Okay, looks like I'm live. Looks like it's all working. Hello, Happy New Year. Um, Make sure I've got the stream all working as always, just making sure everything's technically working. So, yes, Happy New Year to you all. Happy 2020. This is the first live stream back for the year. I couldn't have made it much earlier, as today's the 2nd of January, which is really exciting that I'm back already. And I had a few messages from people saying, actually from 3 or 4 different people saying, the lives are starting back so soon. It's unbelievable. Which is really encouraging to hear that you are all keen to get the live streams back. And I'm really glad that I'm back with the live streams for you all right now. Calte, Richie, 45 Finn, Brick, Jay Amos, Scott Fitzsimons, missed your face, Matt. Thanks, Brick. Thanks, Scott. Really appreciate it. Lockie joined. Good to see you all. This is the first live stream back for the year. Now, I'm going to talk about the live streams. I'm going to talk about a particular bottling from our January Outturn, which is next Friday. Not tomorrow, but we've got something special coming tomorrow, which I'll talk about at the end. But this is our January Outturn edition. Watermelon Drams for Friday the 10th. First Outturn for the year, which is really exciting. And Monster of Malt joined. Sister Ratchet joined. Good to see you both. Keegan Emmons joined. Good to see you. Thank you, 45 Finn. Look, first I want to talk about the live streams. Then I'll talk about this particular bottling, which is in January Outturn. And then I want to talk about a question from a viewer, which is great. So I had a really good question earlier, and I want to answer that. But I'm going to do it in this order. Let's talk about these live streams. I've been doing them every single day. And I think I'm since about sort of June last year. That means like 6 months of a daily live stream. Now, I'm going to continue that as best I can. Now, what I mean by that is, if it's not every day for the first few months this year, please be patient with us because there's a lot going on at the moment. Things which we're announcing over the next few weeks, especially in the next couple of weeks, which are big announcements coming through, which are really exciting. So if I can't do a live stream every single day at the moment, we'll see how we go. But there's also, I like to sometimes have evenings off, which is nice. But I think we might try and maintain at least 4 or 5 a week. Maybe not every weekend, or maybe not every maybe take Mondays or something off. But you will enjoy the Monday rant, so maybe I need to take Tuesdays off or something, or Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't know. We're still working that out. But in the meantime, I'm back for now, which is great, and I'm glad that you're here to join in with me. New Year, New Bailey. How many in total? You know what? That's a really good question. If you add up what 6 months is worth of days, like 180 days or something. If let's say it's 180, for argument's sake, it was about 180 live streams. Minus, I know it's at least 6 or 7 nights where, actually 5 or 6 nights where I wasn't able to, neither Andrew and I were able to do it. And then there was, I think Andrew covered at least 7 times, which was great. So, I mean, look, minus 180 minus 15 or so, let's say, for argument's sake. So, 165 streams last year. Many of which go onto our YouTube channel following this as well. And we're also going to be putting them up on a New Society podcast that you'll see soon. Lots coming through as well, which is really exciting, and lots of new things to talk about. There's always something to go through every single night, and of course this is a cool one because this is the first one for 2020, the first ever SMWS live stream for 2020. So thank you very much for being a part of it so far, everyone who's tuned in and been watching, and for the shout outs and for the mentions and for the questions. Man, some of the questions that I've had last year really spur me on to keep doing this, because I got asked some absolutely cracking questions that, like I get asked questions sometimes at events, like what's the difference between a blended whiskey and a single malt whiskey? That's a perfectly good question, and one that's perfectly easy to answer. However, I got asked some questions in the live stream over the last 6 months, which were like, what's the difference, what's the angel share difference? One of the favorites I got was, what's the difference in angel share between American oak and European oak? God, I had to really research that one. Turns out there's not much difference at all. If anything, slightly higher angel share on European oak, but that's a case-by-case basis, but generally speaking. But, I had some great guests on last year. Everyone from Andrew, our cellar master, to Matt Wooler, to Murray Hassan, to, the guys from Bar Lafayette, Bar Week guests. It was so many people. It was probably more than, I had about 12 or 13 guests all up, which was fantastic. Scott Fitzsimons I had on for a very brief one back in about August, September, around there. That was a quick one we did outside the oak barrel, which was great fun. I had one with Tim Duckett. Look, it was a really good year of live streams, and I'm looking forward to all the questions that came through again. All the questions will come through again this year as well. So I'm going to try and do this every night, like I said, but I'm not going to promise every night like I did last year, because it's quite taxing, I'll be honest. And so we're going to do it at least. No, you know what? I'm going to try and do it every day. Let me see how we go with this, and we'll try and keep some regularity to schedule. It's 8 p.m. every single day, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, whatever that is right now, UTC plus 11 or whatever it is. So 8 p.m. here. I know it's about 9 a.m. in the UK at the moment, and we did get some UK watches, which is great. Okay, let me grab some of these questions before I move on. And a dry July review, teas, coffee, and soft drinks. Yeah, I could do a dry July, a month of dry July. That might be quite challenging because Champs is in July. I don't have any Champs updates for you just yet. It's only the first week back, but it's dry July update. We could do a week of teas and coffees. sounds like hell. Sally, good to see you. Gaucho, good to see you. Traveling Whiskey Reviews, good to see you. Or Dram and Bread, good to see you. How many hair flicks? Ooh, I'm going to go with, if it's 180 streams or 165 streams, I'm going to go with 600 hair flicks. Let's say I'm averaging 4 a session. So there's one, done. Where's the Icon Award? The Icon Award is actually on the wall on this side of the office, which is hanging proudly. It replaced my Peanuts artwork, and it got replaced with the Icons Award, which I'm quite proud of. Hashtag Liam. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to pull this whiskey up. Here we go. How's that cork sound? Perfect. You can tell from that deep thud, there's not much in this bottle. This was a remnant from an event. But I'm just going to pour just a little bit here. And I'm going to have a nose of that. But I'll tell you what this is first before I have a nose. Now, the spicy and dry label might not show through the camera too well. But this is 107.18, happy, heartwarming, and hypnotic. It's a spicy and sweet 7-year-old from our upcoming January Outturn. And I want to tell you a little bit about this distillery, fill you in a bit on what they do, who they are. So I'm going to try and get that label in focus for you there. That's I'm relying on the autofocus of an iPhone camera here. There we go, that looks a bit better. So that's something that's coming up in the January Outturn, this Watermelon Drams here. Now this is a kind of cool bottling. Now we've had a few 107s through in the last 18 months. The distillery itself is a Speyside distillery near Aberlour, I should say. And this one in this case is bottled at 55.9% natural cask strength from a first fill ex-bourbon barrel. Now the reason why I emphasize the cask type on this one is because every 107 we've had through the society in the last 18 months, and we've had about 4 or 5 casks, have all been ex-sherry, like first fill PX, first fill Oloroso, the one refill Oloroso. They've all been sherry casks, and I love a good sherried whiskey. But when I got a chance to taste an ex-bourbon version, and you know how much I love my ex-bourbon barrels, this was really exciting. So it says here that it's a warm kitchen dram, Empire biscuits, meringues, brandy snaps, spun sugar, vanilla, dark chocolate, banana split, and custard-filled donuts. That's an appealing tasting note to me, and one that I'm really keen to taste. I have tasted this whiskey before, so I'm not tasting this one blind. But it's a 7-year-old, one of 221 bottles ever produced from the cask, from the total outturn of the cask, in our spicy and sweet flavour profile there. And what's exciting about this, like I say, is A, it's from a distillery we've not seen many of. It's .18. B, this distillery's had some recent history, which I find fascinating, and some also, it's also quite a young distillery in many ways. And C, we've only ever seen sherry butts at the society locally, in more recent years. So to see an ex-bourbon barrel and taste a different angle of their spirit and different character of their spirit, and in this case, still giving off some sweetness, but maybe a little bit something else here. So I'm going to have just a nose of that, and I'll tell you a bit more about. Let's have a nose of that there. I'm not going to taste it just yet. Okay, so what we've got here is Distillery 107, which I'll divulge is Glenallachie. I can't really talk too much about the distillery if I can't say the name of it. So what I'm going to say is, in this case, it's Glenallachie. we talk flavour, we talk style, we talk society. We don't talk distillery too much. But in this case, I'll tell you a bit about it. I find it fascinating. So it's based in the Aberlour area of Scotland. So Speyside, Scotland, it's easier to say. And it was founded in 1967. So this is a distillery that was founded in 67. Now think about what the whiskey industry looked like in 1967. 1967 in Scotch whiskey was peak blended whiskey. And I mean like absolutely, this is like where blended whiskey was king. Single malt was not a thing yet, really. I mean, it really wasn't. So we're talking about an era of whiskey production where it was single malt was not even a thing yet, but blended whiskey had such a profile worldwide that distilleries were popping up in Scotland like this one in that sort of like just before the crash of whiskey in the early 1980s. So 1967 it was founded, and it had been run for a long time by Shivers Brothers, Pernod Ricard now, but it was run by Shivers Brothers back then. Sorry, it's a moth. And it was basically built to provide surplus to blends. And so that's what it was and has been for a long time. Even up until very recently, most of their output, in fact, most of their output still goes into blend, but that's going to change over time, I think, with new ownership. Plus, it was 20 years after World War II. Correct, Calte, indeed. So they currently put out 3.2 million litres a year, which puts them in the sort of bracket of large-ish. It's a pretty big distillery. It'd be in the top 50 distilleries in Scotland in terms of output out of the 130-odd distilleries operating, 140-odd. It's hard to keep up. There's so many new distilleries opening in Scotland. But it's at 3.2 million litres. That puts them there with their output of 3.2 million. Most of that still goes into blending. But they have recently released a range of single malts, core range single malts. They're all bottled at 46%. Some of them are quite nice. In fact, the 12-year-old I thought was quite good, and I think there's a single cask they released themselves as well. But yeah, it's kind of cool to see them. That what they've recently done is released a range of single malts with age statements at a respectable proof, which is always what you like to hear. What we've done here is we've done the same. We've released a single cask, however, at 7 years old, with 55.9% from a first fill bourbon barrel. And you're getting to try something quite unique from that distillery in terms of its flavour profile and what kind of spirit it makes, especially for a distillery that mostly goes into blending. It's like, we're not just picking out a single malt from that distillery, we're picking out a single cask. And that's always exciting for me. I get way more excited over distillery codes of distilleries that are mostly blending houses. That's why if I get excited over 39s, 107s, 7s, distillery codes like that, 10s, where most of their output goes into blending. Because often, if they're already producing as a single malt primarily, they're already a pretty good whiskey. But in this case, if you're picking out a single cask, you're able to sort of really, really hone in and dissect on a flavour profile, which you just don't see. And that's why it's exciting to see single casks out of distilleries that don't generally have a core range. And the core range from this distillery is very small. It's very, very small. It's select retailers have it, kind of thing. It's like hard to find. It's good whiskey. Don't get me wrong. Joni Tam joined. Muzzman joined. Good to see you, Muzz. Happy New Year, Muzz. And Matt Music MW. So we're talking a bit about Distillery 107. If you've just missed the beginning of this stream, and a bit about how it's a blending of a blender's distillery. It's always had. I found the distillery profile has always been quite a spirit-rich, metallic kind of note in some of their spirit. And even in the core range, I always find it's got quite a almost like a white pepper, tin roof kind of hard water to it. That's not always the case. And that's why the ones that we had in sherry casks like Fortress of Darkness, 107.12, things like that, or was it .10 or .8? I can't remember, sorry. They're seriously heavy whiskies, like really big charry casks from a very heavy spirit distillery. You're not even allowed to take photos of the distillery. They don't let you pass the front gate even to take photos of the outside of the building. It's a very quiet sort of don't disturb kind of distillery, a bit like trying to visit Glenkeith, which I once tried, or Linkwood. They don't let you in the front door. These are blending distilleries. They're not tourist attractions. They're workhorses. They're meant to be. They're there to create great spirit to create homogenized, well-rounded blends. So recently, and I'm going to say, I don't know the exact date. But I'm going to say 2015. I'm going to say 2016 maybe. A gentleman named Billy Walker bought the distillery with some of the proceeds he made from selling his Glendronach, Benriach, Glenglassaugh empire, which he sold to Brown-Forman for, I can't remember on the number, but it was something like £540 million at the time. Or I don't think it was that much. It was a lot. It was like maybe £170 million and probably a few £100 million out. I don't remember that number, but I do remember that he sold it for a lot of money. He sold those distilleries for a lot of money, and then he's bought Glenallachie since. So what we're seeing now in the core range from this distillery is the efforts of Billy's new sort of endeavor to create a brand around it. So I'm really emphasizing that though, because it's creating a brand around that spirit rather than creating trying to sort of, they're not trying to recreate the wheel, but it's kind of like, well, it's got to occupy a bit of shelf space. It's got to say, this is interesting enough for a single malt. And in our case, it's a distillery that we've picked out very few single casks from because, like I say, it's a very closed door scenario. You're not even allowed past the front gate when you visit. It was a very rainy day that I was there, but it's one of those distilleries that doesn't really it's not really about the visitor experience. However, I think with Billy on board, maybe that'll change. He's very good at building brands and very good at building profile, and I think that he'll probably run. If I'm to take a wild guess, it'd be kind of one of those distilleries he might run for the next 10, 15 years, and then maybe sell on again like he did last time. But he seems like quite a smart guy, and he's already creating. We're already seeing it's not his distillations, of course, it's not his, but it is his releases. It's its final product, which is often the case. There's a great interview actually that just reminded me of that great interview that we had in our Unfiltered magazine with Sandy Hislop from Shivers Brothers, where he kind of felt a bit of ennui or a bit of nostalgia or about the idea of that there's spirits being laid down in casks now at the Shivers distilleries that he'll never ever get to see in his lifetime. And he's not even an old guy, and he just sort of like that there are spirits being laid down now that we'll never see. Like they'll probably be aged 30, 40, 50 years. So that's kind of like, that's exciting. It's also kind of like, it's a shame, but it's also like, it's very cool that they're sort of creating something for the future there, and I think that's what we'll probably see out of Distillery 107. So there's some history for you. The 3.2 million litres, 1967, very cool distillery in terms of it's one we don't really see much of ever. And like I said before, these are some of my favourite codes in our system are codes from distilleries that are predominantly going to blends. And I don't just mean predominantly, I mean like 99.9% going to blending, which is super exciting because you get to sort of in a blend it's homogenized, it's all pulled together in a well crafted blended whiskey. We'll use it correctly in the right balance and everything. The art of blending, of course. But in terms of us as a society going in and honing in, and going that cask there is performing rather well. It's exciting. It's something that we get to celebrate the uniqueness of single cask whiskey, and that's kind of what I get excited about and get excited about coming to work each day and doing is actually honing in on that experience and providing that experience to members. Let me grab some of these questions and shout outs. Yo Matt, thank you. Whiskey and Wisdom. Hi Andrew, I didn't see you pop in there. Have they been selling to the barrel brokerages the whole time? How much IB is around? Robert Akers, really good question. Have they been selling to the barrel brokerages the whole time? I would say not the whole time. It all comes down to sort of supply and demand, Robert. I mean, I wouldn't know their exact brokerage situation or how much spirit they sell to others. And I don't know whether society is either buying directly through them or through brokers, but it's a case of just having actually getting in and having that sort of supply and seeing what is available and what isn't. There are some distilleries that used to sell third party and sell direct to the society that may no longer, and there are some that never used to but now do. I mean, the relationships change all the time, and it's all very much a relationship based game and supply based. But I don't know how long they've been selling to independent bottlers. You don't see even many independents of this distillery. In fact, I can't remember any other. I know I've seen one other not from the SMWS, but I don't know of many others. But we've seen 18 casks in 36, 37 years of the society. That's very few when you think about it. Very, very few. Evening, Matt. Just quietly, you're mad for starting this up so early in the year. Okay, I'll take that. I am mad. I started back at work today, so I figured if I'm here, I may as well do one. And as I said at the beginning of the stream, Andrew, which you may have missed, I didn't see where you came in, sorry. I don't know if we're going to be able to... Look, I'll see if we can do this every day. I still love doing it every day. Whiskey Holic, join. Good to see Whiskey Holic. I can't help it, you're right. God. Monarch Perth, Happy New Year to you as well. Thank you very much for that extra upgrade on your Christmas box. Susie appreciated it greatly. I couldn't give you a shout out before because it was meant to be a surprise for Susie. So there you go. A Christmas party, Paul. 107.18 Christmas party. There was a definite increase in IBs since the sale went through, clearing stock but also building vibe. Really building the Marbo of it there, Fitzsimons. Look, I mean, definitely an increase in IBs since the sale went through. We've been releasing IBs from well before the sale, of course, but that would have changed. We've definitely seen a few more. So, however, we're sourcing them direct or through a broker. I think they would be direct if it was going through a sale in that case. But I'm speculating here, so it's just a guesswork at that point. There you go. So clearing stock and finding some interesting things. Like I say, most of them we've seen have been between 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. They've mostly been ex-sherry. In fact, every single one we've seen so far has been ex-sherry, except this. And this is honestly, it's like spun sugar biscuits, and I really do get that on that nose there. It's like a warm kitchen dram is a good describer for it. It's really lovely. It's a really good summer selection, that one, and that's what the whole idea behind January Outturn has been summery selections of things that we think you'd enjoy, that are in that lighter and delicate, sweet, fruity, and mellow sort of profile. That said, we did choose a peated whiskey for Malt of the Month. And there's a good whack of them to go around, and it's really cool to see a 93 at that price. So Outturn will be in your inboxes very shortly, and if it's some of your mailboxes have already got it. For those who still opt in for the paper copy, but inboxes will get it very shortly as well. So the distillery in question is Glenallachie Hot Dog Extravaganza. We've just been talking about Glenallachie for the last 20 minutes or so, just covering some of the interesting points about the distillery and learning a bit about it and some of its history. It's actually got a fascinating history. So you can always rewatch this up in the corner on our story, or you can watch this on YouTube later. So where are we up to? I got asked a great question earlier about what's the difference between peat and smoke in a whiskey. It's a very funny question because it's actually one of the most popular articles on the Whiskey Wise blog, our society website, which you can check out. It's all free for members, of course. Part of the benefits of membership is learning so much about whiskey. Who would have thought? The terms peat and smoke are often interchangeably misused, I should say, and sometimes people incorrectly refer one meaning the same as the other. They absolutely don't. I'm going to delve into this one a bit more tomorrow night, but in the meantime, check out there's an article on Whiskey Wise. Just go to smws.com.au/news, and there's a really good write-up from Andrew Durbidge, our cellar master, who wrote this back in 2015. He may have even written it earlier, but that's when we published it, on the difference between peat and smoke, and then even delves into some of the nerdier stuff like the phenols and creosols and all the parts about how different elements come through. But in terms of just one of the points of your question earlier, and that was 45 Finn's question, was what's the taste difference? Really, I mean, was in like what are examples of ones that taste different between smoke and peat? Honestly, when it comes to me, if I taste a whiskey like a peated Kalila or a 53, I get so much smoke in them often. Like I get really like that sort of like white sugar smoke. Almost like like white sugar smoke is a good example of it. It's like a sweet smoke. And that's why, in my opinion, when it comes to Isla distilleries, Kalila is the only one that I can pick out blind, I think, every time. I think it's one of those distilleries that has such a unique profile and such a consistent profile that it's easy to pick. But I often get a sort of smokiness out of a lot of Kalilas. Whereas on the flip side, something like Ardbeg, I get really lots of peat. And that's that boggy, earthy notes. You get like... sort of like almost like potting mix and rich potting mix, and I guess even in some cases almost like rotting seaweed and iodine. I mean, I get notes like that in peat, whereas in smoke I get things like the smoke of a cigar, or like I say, a bit of a sugary sort of sweet smoke on it. So there you go. Look, I won't get too dirty on the smoke and peat side tonight, because tonight's really just a welcome back sort of video, and I encourage you to read more about that on our site. I'm going to tuck into 107.18. Happy, heartwarming, and hypnotic dram from our January Outturn. That one will be available Friday the 10th of January. And something that Andrew once said was that I think his line was something like, two things in life are certain. Three things in life are certain: death, taxes, and the Outturn falls on the first Friday of every month. However, it didn't for this month, because we figured that the first Friday is tomorrow, which is the 3rd. A lot of people still on holiday. Our warehouse still sort of maybe being a bit sleepy. So we're just going to go, you know what, we'll do it on the Friday the 10th. And we've got some awesome announcements coming for you in Outturn as well as in your inbox over the next few days. And something tomorrow as well, which I can't talk about just yet. But that's really exciting, and I'll thank you so much for being a part of this journey so far. This is the beginning of 2020. This is the beginning of learning great things about whiskey, being a part of the SMWS, and being a part of a whiskey society that is unlike any other. And I'm really looking forward to this year. And I know I say that every year, but I really am looking forward to this year especially. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for your great questions. I'll see you all tomorrow night. Cheers.